What happens when the most dangerous member of the Bloodline starts feeling overlooked? Because after what happened on Monday Night Raw, WWE fans have started asking a question that nobody expected to ask this soon. Is Jacob Fatu slowly turning against Roman Reigns? For months, Jacob Fatu has been one of Roman Reigns' most loyal soldiers. Every time Roman needed backup, Jacob was there. Every time the Bloodline needed protection, Jacob was willing to go to war. But after Raw, it suddenly feels like something has changed. Welcome back to the Ringside Observer. I'm Kai. In this video, we're breaking down why Jacob Fatu's behavior on Raw has fans talking, why Roman Reigns may have accidentally created a major problem inside the Bloodline, what Jacob's reaction tells us about his current mindset, and whether WWE is quietly planting the seeds for another Bloodline Civil War. Grab some popcorn and get comfortable because we've got a lot of dots to connect before this one's done. Let's get into it. The first thing we need to talk about is that moment involving LA Knight. When LA Knight came after Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu immediately looked ready to step in. That shouldn't surprise anyone. Jacob Fatu has built his reputation around aggression. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't wait. He doesn't ask questions. When there's a threat, Jacob usually handles it. But this time was different. Roman Reigns stopped him, and that's where things started getting interesting. At first glance, it might not seem like a big deal. Roman was simply telling Jacob to stay back, because he wanted to handle the situation himself. That's something leaders do all the time. But wrestling is all about context. And context matters here. Because Jacob Fatu isn't just another member of the Bloodline. He's arguably the most dangerous member of the entire group. He's the man who has repeatedly proven he's willing to do anything for Roman Reigns. And yet Roman told him to stand down. Jacob listened. But if you watched closely, you could see something on his face. Confusion, frustration, maybe even disappointment. And then things got even more complicated. Because shortly afterward, Roman Reigns publicly honored Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso. Not only did he acknowledge them, he elevated them. He placed a black ulafala around their necks and effectively presented them as leaders within this new version of the Bloodline. That moment was huge, because while Jey and Jimmy were receiving recognition, Jacob Fatu was standing there watching. And that's where the speculation begins. Did Jacob feel ignored? Did he feel overlooked? Did he feel like all his sacrifices were suddenly being forgotten? Those are important questions because WWE has told stories like this before. In fact, we've seen this exact pattern inside the Bloodline. Think about Solo Sikoa. At one point, Solo was Roman Reigns' most trusted enforcer. He followed orders. He protected the family. He did everything Roman asked him to do. But eventually, Solo stopped feeling appreciated. Eventually, Solo wanted more. And when that happened, everything changed. That's why some fans are looking at Jacob Fatu and wondering if history is about to repeat itself. Now, to be fair, nothing on Raw confirmed that Jacob is turning against Roman Reigns. In fact, you could argue the opposite. You could argue that Jacob was simply respecting Roman's authority. Roman told him not to get involved, so he obeyed. That's a completely reasonable interpretation. But WWE thrives on subtle storytelling. And subtle storytelling is exactly what makes this situation fascinating. Because Jacob didn't celebrate with everyone else. He didn't look happy. And perhaps most importantly, he eventually walked away. Quietly. Without saying much. Without causing a scene. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. And that's why fans are paying attention. The possibility of a future conflict suddenly feels very real. Imagine what happens if Roman continues prioritizing the Usos. Imagine if Jacob starts feeling pushed aside. Imagine if every major decision continues being made without him. Eventually, frustration starts building. Eventually, loyalty gets tested. And eventually, people start asking whether they're being respected. That's where WWE could have a blockbuster story on their hands. Because a rivalry between Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu would be massive. We're talking about two of the most physically intimidating stars in WWE. Two men who understand the Bloodline better than almost anyone. Two men who believe they're protecting the family. The emotional stakes would be enormous. And that's exactly why fans are already talking about it. Now let's be clear. We're not saying Jacob Fatu is turning heel next week. We're not saying Jacob is about to attack Roman Reigns. WWE loves planting seeds long before anything actually happens. Sometimes those seeds grow. Sometimes they don't. But the fact that fans are discussing this possibility tells you WWE did something right. Because now people are watching every interaction, every conversation, every facial expression. And that's exactly how great wrestling stories begin. What makes this even more interesting is that Roman Reigns may not even realize what he's doing. From Roman's perspective, honoring Jay and Jimmy makes perfect sense. They're family, they're trusted allies, they're bloodline originals. But leadership is complicated. Sometimes when you elevate one person, someone else feels left behind. And if that person happens to be Jacob Fatu, that's a very dangerous situation. Because Jacob Fatu isn't someone you want feeling disrespected. He's not someone you want feeling forgotten. And he's definitely not someone you want feeling betrayed. That's why the next few weeks could be incredibly important. How Roman treats Jacob moving forward might determine everything. Does Jacob remain Roman's most loyal soldier? Or does he become Roman's biggest problem? That's the question WWE fans are starting to ask. And honestly, it's a question worth paying attention to. Because if Jacob Fatu ever decides he's done standing in the background, the entire bloodline could change overnight. What do you think? Did Roman Reigns make a mistake by stopping Jacob Fatu? Was Jacob justified in feeling frustrated? And if Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu ever collide, who walks out on top? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And before you go, I've got one final question for you. Could Jacob Fatu become the next member of the bloodline to turn against Roman Reigns? Let me know. Until next time, this is Kai for the Ringside Observer.